Hi, folks. Welcome to my second live video broadcast. I'm really excited to be here to share some of my travel adventures with you. And we're hoping that this week some of the audio is a little bit better than it was last week. There is a bit of a delay in the broadcast. It's about a 7 to 10 second delay from the time I'm actually broadcasting until you receive it. So if you feel like your comments are getting ignored, give me a few seconds to, number one, for them to show up on my screen, and number two, for me to answer them. But while we're waiting for, I'd like to know who's out there and where you are right now in the world. And so why don't you type in the comments and let me know that you're there. Currently, I am in Tucson, Arizona, as many of you know, and I am kind of overwintering here. My daughter Becca and I had a 3-month road trip around the western U.S. From August until October, and then it started getting colder and colder, and we were sleeping in a tent, and I decided that was kind of for the birds. So now I have a warm bed to sleep in for the winter. We are not sure what our next step is. Most of us. We are waiting for the COVID thing to be at least a little bit more over than it is now. So let's see, I was going to see if there's any, throughout the whole live video, please feel free to throw in questions or comments in the comment section, and I will answer them as we get a chance. There's Starla. You're in Arizona too. Hi, Starla. So here's what I have in mind for today. The live broadcast will take about 30 minutes, and today's topic is thematic travel. And I'm probably going to tell you a story or two along the way in relationship to thematic travel. And at the end, I have what I think is kind of an exciting announcement to share with you about that. So let's see, I've got some slides up here. So I travel thematically, and sometimes people ask me if I get lonely when I'm traveling. And my answer is no. I meet too many people to get lonely. I make a lot of new friendships, and it has to do, I think, with the way that I travel, which is thematically. And this method that I use, let's see if I can get it up here. Yeah. So I feel like key for meeting and engaging with locals, and also finding other locations and destinations that are specifically things that you're going to be interested in. And thanks to the way that I travel, I have friends now all over the world, and that's good and bad. It's really very good. It's really wonderful to have all these friends. Sometimes it's challenging because I want to go back and visit them. And of course, right now it's impossible. But even when it is possible, it's expensive. So it's hard for me to get back to see all these friends that I've made. But it's really wonderful to have them. Luckily, we have great ways to be able to contact each other. I have been able to call some of my friends on the internet, and that's been really wonderful. The other thing about thematic travel is if you tend to be a bit reticent or shy about meeting people, it's a great tool for breaking the ice, and both for you and for the people that you meet. Oh, hi, Deborah. Glad you made it. You got your errands done, so you're able to join us. I'm so glad. So in a nutshell, I'm going to try to describe what thematic travel is, and then tell you how I've developed some ways to help you plan a thematic trip. Mainly, I always ask people, what is it you enjoy doing? What is your favorite, kind of passion things you do in your spare time, things that you would do if you didn't have to work, things you always manage to carve out time for. For example, maybe you like to embroider. or do other kinds of handwork. And you can find time to have coffee and sit down and embroider and trade techniques with them possibly. If you're a photographer, you could go out into the field with local photographers and have a photo shoot, and then compare the photos and talk about the ways that you have gotten those photos together. Maybe you like gardening, and there's allotment gardens all over the world where you can go in and help. And of course, you know, if you're a gardener, you probably garden with other people, and you know how much camaraderie there is with that. Maybe you like to play games, particularly if you play classic games like chess. You don't even need, the language barrier is not so bad because you use the same language. You don't need to know their language in order to play the games. So that's a great way too to meet new friends. If you're a hiker, you can find lots of people all over the world that'll go hiking with you. Here in India, I was on a day hike with a lady from Azerbaijan and a young woman from India. So, and this was up in northern India, and beautiful, beautiful hiking in the mountains. If you like to cook, you might get invited to help out in the kitchen. And in some countries in the world, that's possible because the regulations aren't as strong. Here I was in Sri Lanka helping out on Christmas Eve with a buffet that was going to be made that night. And if you're a fisherman, maybe you can find fishermen who might be willing to reveal some of their secret places for fishing around the world. So those are just a few ideas. As you think about the things that you enjoy, then you can start kind of brainstorming ways that you can make this happen for you. So this all kind of brings me to a story about a young man that I met in India. His name was Rowie, and he was traveling. He was actually from Tel Aviv, Israel, and he was traveling, and we happened to start a conversation. And at that time, I was in the process of kind of putting together my ideas about how I could convey or translate thematic travel into other interests besides my own. And as you probably know, my special interests are, I like to hike, I like food, but really I spend a lot of time trying to engage with other people who knit and spin yarn. And so I wanted to see if this would translate to other hobbies, other passions. And so I was trying to explain this to Rowie, figuring out how can I get this across to other people. And he looks at me and he kind of says, you know, I don't understand. So I said to him, well, what do you like to do in your spare time? And he said, I like to swim. And I said, well, do you swim in a pool, or, you know, what do you do, swim in a pool? And he said, yes. And I said, do you know about open water swimming? Because I had just been following a friend of mine who had just swam the English Channel. And so I was real interested in open water swimming. So it just so happened he mentioned that he liked to swim, and he said no, he had never done any open water swimming. So I said, well, you know, there's a lot of camaraderie with other people that swim out. You went around the world swimming and trying to meet these people. It would be a way that you would do the things that you like to do while you're traveling. And so we talked a little while. We exchanged Facebook names, and he went on his way. I went on my way. And a few months later, I noticed on his Facebook page that I was seeing these pictures pop up. And they were pictures of the harbor in Tel Aviv and his friends that he had met, that he was swimming with in his hometown. So he had started open water swimming. And then one day popped up on my Facebook, and it was on his timeline. And I was like, oh, that's gorgeous. Where is that? And I said, are you swimming in that beautiful water? And he wrote back to me, it's a swimming trip. So we go to different places on this island and swim. And this was in Greece. And in between, we drink a lot of ouzo. But tomorrow we're going on a 5.4 kilometer swim. And as you can guess, it's all thanks to our small talk in India. So you can imagine how exciting that was for me, because I was getting it across. And also it showed me that this idea of thematic travel translates to just got to find a way to take your interest in and meet other people and engage in it as you travel. So thank you, Deborah. That's a fun story that I always think that it really made a difference in me going from just traveling around and doing what I do, and then finding ways that I can make the way I travel accessible to other people. So there are several kind of aspects of thematic travel. You want to pair your interest with destinations. So for example, you want to figure out where you're going and what or kind of what you're doing, and then think about the places where people do that. Now, things like photography, there's photographers all over the world, but I probably wouldn't go to some place like I don't know, let's see, if I were interested in, well, I am interested in knitting, and I find that there's not as many knitters in Asia as there are in Europe. So when I was looking for knitters, I went to Peru once, and then I went to Asia, and so I went to the places where I knew I was going to meet a lot of knitters. So when you're planning, you need to think about those kinds of things. And then thematic travel is you want to discover cohorts, or you want to discover these people, and you want to learn how to introduce yourself in a way that's comfortable. So here's another story. When I went to Peru, I was in Peru in 2015, and I was living in the Sacred Valley, and I was on a hike, and I had just come down this hill, and I was almost down to the bottom, and it's a fairly local trail, but there are tourists that use this trail to go up to some ruins occasionally. And so I had come down from going up to see the ruins, and a caballero overtook me with his horses, and he was bringing them down from up there, and he stopped. And many times locals, if they saw me walking, because I hiked a lot alone, they would ask me, "Are you alone?" And they would kind of look around, "Where's your guide?" Because I think they thought I was lost. And so I often got a chance to talk to locals that way. And this man, his name was Domingo, and he said the same thing. He's looking around, "Where's your guide?" And I told him that I was on my own. And we got to talking. He had a beautiful chullo on his head. A chullo is a hat, a very beautiful knitted, colorful hat that they wear in Peru. And he had a beautiful, colorful vest. And I mentioned how beautiful they were. And then I told him that I was interested in textiles, and particularly I love to knit and spin. And his eyes just lit up. And he said, "Oh, you have to come to my village, because we're developing a guest house so that people can come and meet my wife and her sister and my mother-in-law, because so they can demonstrate their weaving and their spinning." And so I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, if you'll meet me," he told me where to meet him, the bus stop to meet him at, and he would pick me up there and take me up to his village. So he did, and it was a 45-minute drive up a windy, windy, windy road. And the village sits right on the edge of a cliff overlooking this same valley that I just been walking in. And he, when I got there, let's see, I have some pictures. Yeah, when I got there, I met I think it was his daughter-in-law with her baby, and his mother-in-law, and I got them all mixed up. There were so many women there, and these two ladies took me out to the edge of the canyon, and we just sat there on the edge of this cliff and knitted. And the younger woman was really interested in the way that my technique for knitting socks, because she'd never seen socks knitted the technique I use. So I was able to share that with her. And then the older woman, and these women just amaze me because they can walk down these trails, these rocky trails, and be spinning at the same time. And she was collecting leaves for dyeing her yarn, and she showed me how to collect the leaves to help her collect the leaves. So that bag that she had on her back, she had full of these leaves that she was going to use for dyeing yarn. So then we walked back to their home, and we had a wonderful lunch. They had slaughtered a lamb and had fixed a lamb stew, and I got to help chop vegetables. And then after lunch, we all sat down out on the grass and brought out all of our projects. And we spent several hours visiting and laughing and telling stories. And some of the younger ladies were practicing their English. And of course, my Spanish was getting a workout. And it's real interesting because for many of these women, Spanish is not even their first language. They speak Quechua. So for some of them, one time I met one of the ladies and I was talking to her in my broken Spanish, and she was talking to me, and I said, "I'm sorry, my Spanish is not so good." And she looked at me and she laughed and she says, "Oh, my Spanish is not so good either." So we had a good laugh about that. But they were just wonderful and demonstrated a lot of things. And I bought some of their wares that they had made, mostly woven. They set me up by their next to their backstrap loom so that I could practice on a backstrap loom. And they dressed me up in their clothing, and we just did a lot. It was quite a fun day. One of my favorite pictures that you see oftentimes on my website is from that day that I was there. I was there by myself. There were no other tourists even in that village, and it was a wonderful, really off the beaten track experience to have. There I am spinning on my spindle that I had acquired while I was there. And at the end of the day, Domingo took me back down the mountain, and I got on the bus. I was exhausted, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So that's another part of another aspect is meeting people and ways that you're able to easily meet people as a result. And the kind of the third aspect or the third feature that I feel like I try to get across to people about thematic travel is I think it's important. It's optional, but I think it's valuable to have a thematic project. And most of you know that when let me just give you an example. If you're an artist, for example, maybe you carry around a community sketch pad, and when you meet fellow artists, you would have them contribute a drawing or a painting or something in the sketchbook, and keep track of all those contributors. And in the process, you're going to end up having conversations with them, so you get to know them. Oftentimes, you will get invited. I was invited to stay the weekend with a fellow knitter in Copenhagen. Just out of the blue. She didn't even know me. I said, "Don't you think you ought to ask your husband if it's okay?" "Oh, it'll be fine with him." And in fact, he was thrilled that I came and stayed the weekend at their place. And so you'll get lots of invitations from people, and they will tell you about places that you would never know about except the fact that you had met them there. And the fact that you had met them in such a personal way. My project, as most of you know, was Hamish. I called him Hamish the Traveling Scarf. He didn't have a name when we started out, but he became such an important part of my travels that I ended up giving him a name. And I arrived in Europe with him, and I just started a little binding on him. And every time I met a knitter or a crocheter, I said, "Would you add to Hamish for me?" And when I left Europe 13 months later, Hamish was 6 meters long, and he had over 200 track of every contributor to the scarf. Every one of those stripes on the scarf was a different person adding their stitches to the scarf. And there were people that had all kinds of experience knitting or crocheting. There were some that were rank beginners, and there were some women who were very well-known lace knitting designers. So it was just ran the gamut of people that that I met. And there were some things that happened with Hamish, some very synchronous and coincidental things that were unbelievable sometimes that happened because I was traveling with Hamish. And I could spend a whole Facebook Live session talking about Hamish, and I will in a few weeks probably, because he was such a great traveling companion and a wonderful project to have as a thematic project. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can learn more about thematic travel, but I want to give you a chance to be sure if you have any questions or any comments that we would do that. And I'm going to wait just a few seconds because of this weird lag that we have with Facebook. I'll give you a few seconds and come up with any questions you have. So glad you guys could join us. So one of the things that I put together a couple of ways to learn about the nitty-gritty process of working on a thematic travel project. About a year or so ago, I wrote a really long article that I put on my website about called The Ultimate Guide to Thematic Travel. It's quite long, it's quite detailed, but it has all kinds of ideas in it for how you can develop your travel project. So if you're a person that likes to just read the information and learn from it, this is a way that is just written in prose. There's a lot of photos with that article. And then over this last year, and I finally finished this fall, I created a online video course called Creating Your Own Thematic Travel Adventure. And that is just been published on my website. And so there's two ways to learn more about thematic travel and each of these ways go through all the processes of planning your thematic trip, finding cohorts and learning how to engage with local people, coming up with a thematic travel project. There's a lot of brainstorming exercises in there to do these kinds of things. And then at the end of both of these, I talk about the resources and the next steps that you might take in order to actually start planning itineraries, actually coming up with destinations, all kinds of things like that I cover at the end. So I want to tell you, let's see. Oh, and both of these ways of learning about thematic travel have worksheets that you can download so that you can kind of work your way through various plans and ideas. So I will tell you, let's see, I need to put up here on the screen. Here is the place you need to go to find both of these, the article and the video course. The video course is new. I just put it up this week. And it's Cathleen'sOdyssey.com, which is my website, /thematic-travel. And I'll put these in the comments, of this event, so you can go back and find it later easily, and you can just link to it. And let's see, where is that? Oh, and you will be asked for your email, but that's all. It's all both of these are free. I just love to share these things, and I've been playing with video over the last few months or a few years, and I really wanted to do a video course and see how that would come out. And so I'm pretty happy with it. I'd like to know if you take it, how you do with it, and if you enjoy it. So let's see. I don't know if there's any other. I was going to wait and see if there's some questions. While we're waiting, I will tell you. That I will be repeating this broadcast on Sunday. It will still be a live broadcast, so I will be live on Sunday, and that will be at 8 o'clock Pacific time, which is the same as, I think, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Set it up so that people that are in other time zones around the world, it might be a little bit easier. People that are in Europe that might want to join us can do so. But that's on Sunday, and it's in the events, the Facebook events, and I will also have it on my web page for the broadcast page. Here's the broadcast link. If you go to this Cathleen'sOdyssey.com/broadcast, that's where I always keep you up to date on what is going on with my live broadcasts. Let's see. Also, I will archive this video there, as well as it will be on Facebook. So that way, if you have friends that don't use Facebook, but they're interested in my traveling topics, this information. So my next event, which is going to be next Tuesday, and I'm going to start a little bit later on Tuesday. I think that might be a better time for people. I will be talking about my experiences on the Camino de Santiago in 2017. And this is actually a direct request from Starla. She wants to know more about the Camino. And speaking of that, that's the way that that's one way that I decide what to talk about next, or what kind of things to talk about in my live event. So if you have things that you want me to talk about regarding the way that I travel, or if you just want to hear a few stories, just let me know, and I will put them on the agenda for future live broadcasts. So next week it will be about the Camino, and there'll be quite a few stories about my travel on the Camino, as well as recommendations. I will also talk about what it's like day to day, like each day, what a day is like on the Camino. And then I'll give some recommendations for people that might want to plan their own Camino. There's no more questions or comments. I'm glad that you guys, I see Starla was here and Deborah was here, so I will say hi to you guys. Thanks for joining me. I don't know how many other people might have been, but thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed the broadcast, be sure to like it on Facebook and share it with your friends and invite them to my next events. I'm going to try to run them every week on Tuesday, and then on Sunday I'll repeat the broadcast. I'm going to leave you. I made up a little teaser trailer about that is just some takes from the video course that I just published, that I told you about, the Thematic Travel video course. So that's how we're going to end. I will say farewell. Thank you. We'll see you next week, if not sooner.
But whatever it is, you can take that theme, that passion, and turn it into a travel plan that will take you places so that you can meet people that do similar things. And that's what this workshop is all about. We're going to walk you through the steps, and we're going to have